Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In China's long and storied history, no identity shines as brightly as that of the emperor. Throughout the millennia of feudal dynasties, with their changes of reigns and rulers, it was only with the abdication of the last emperor of the Qing dynasty, Puyi, that the complete end of the imperial system was declared. Puyi's legendary life was full of drama. On October 17, 1967, at the age of 61, Puyi passed away in Beijing. He ascended to the throne at the age of 3, but just 3 years later, the Qing dynasty was overthrown. In the decades that followed, he experienced exile, imprisonment, humiliation, and struggle, serving as a puppet emperor and later falling into captivity, enduring numerous twists and turns in his life. After Puyi's death, the mystery of his inheritance became a topic of public discussion. People were curious, as a man who once wielded supreme power, how much wealth and personal belongings did he leave behind upon his death? The answer to this question might surprise and shock many. According to historians, Puyi became emperor at the age of 3, with his father acting as regent. However, by that time, the Qing dynasty was already in a state of disarray. Puyi's ancestors, especially Empress Dowager Cixi, had spent enormous sums from the imperial treasury on personal luxuries, and had signed a series of unequal treaties that drained the empire's finances. This left the Qing dynasty financially strained, with the national treasury almost empty by the time Puyi ascended the throne. As emperor, Puyi held no real power. He was but a puppet, completely under the control of external forces. Even his personal wealth was far from the affluence that many imagined. In 1911, the Xinhai Revolution broke out, leading to the eventual fall of the Qing dynasty. Soon after, Puyi was forced to abdicate and lost his imperial title. Although he continued to live in the Forbidden City after his abdication, he did not regain the glory of his past. The Republic of China provided him with a monthly allowance of 1 million taels of silver. But this money was quickly squandered by Puyi. On the morning of November 5, 1924, General Feng Yuxiang's subordinate, General Liu Zhonglin, led 20 armed soldiers into the Forbidden City. Acting on orders from General Feng, they forcibly expelled Puyi from the palace. The entire process lasted more than 2 hours, and ultimately, Puyi and his family were forced to leave the Forbidden City, bringing an end to his 13-year life as a former emperor. At the time, Feng Yuxiang's decision was not supported by other military leaders. Zhang Zuolin and Wu Peifu both expressed dissatisfaction with Feng's actions, but Feng remained resolute in his stance. His hatred for the feudal imperial system made him unshakable. After the news spread, the regent Zifeng and ministers of the imperial household department repeatedly visited Feng Yuxiang, begging him to preserve the royal family. But their requests were rejected. Feng Yuxiang issued orders to General Liu Zhonglin to expel Puyi from the Forbidden City within 3 hours. To ensure safety, Liu sealed off every exit from the Forbidden City with military police, placing sentries at key intersections. He led a team of armed soldiers into the palace, with each man carrying 2 grenades as a precaution. Once inside, General Liu cut off the telephone lines to foreign embassies and began moving through the palace, ordering everyone to stand still and not move. At the time, there were about 600 eunuchs and palace maids in the palace. Liu's team reached Longzong Gate and located the Grand Council, where they notified the commander of the guards, UT, and instructed ministers from the Imperial Household Department to come and meet him. When Minister Xiaoying and Rong Yuan arrived, General Liu made it clear that Puyi must leave the Forbidden City within 2 hours and hand over all palace property. Xiaoying, clearly unwilling to cooperate, was sternly warned by General Liu that if there was no response within 2 hours, the army would open fire on the palace. At that moment, Puyi was leisurely playing jianzi, a traditional Chinese game, with his consort, Wanrong, in the Chuxiu Palace, enjoying a peaceful morning. He was suddenly informed that ministers from the Imperial Household Department wanted to see him. He hurriedly stood up and walked to Ikuan Palace. Upon hearing Xiaoying relayed General Lu's request, Puyi was shocked and immediately responded, "Tell them I agree to leave the palace. But let me pack my clothes first." Xiaoying hurriedly relayed Puyi's response to General Lu Zhonglin and mentioned that Puyi wished to take private property from the palace with him, but this request was firmly rejected by General Lu. Xiaoying and other ministers, citing the recent death of Empress Jean and the reluctance of other concubines to leave the palace, pleaded with General Lu to give them more time. However, General Lu ignored their pleas and directly placed a grenade on the table, signaling them to speed up their actions. Seeing this, Xiaoying had no choice but to agree to comply immediately, requesting an additional 20 minutes. At this point, Puyi had already handed over the heirloom seal of the realm. Empress Wanrong, tearfully, only took a few items of clothing with her. By 2 p.m., Wanrong met up with Puyi, Wenxiu, Rongyuan, and others, preparing to leave the Forbidden City. Soon, Regent Zifeng arrived in a hurry. After expressing his emotions, he, along with more than 30 others, headed to the Shenzhen Gate in the Imperial Garden. By this time, Puyi had already ordered the eunuchs and palace maids to disperse, each receiving a different amount of silver dollars as severance pay. When Puyi and his group arrived in front of the Shenwu Gate, they saw several waiting sedan chairs. General Lu Zhonglin told Puyi, "These are to take you away." After speaking, he got into the car himself, while Puyi was arranged to sit in the second car. Wanrong and a palace maid sat in the third car, Wenxiu in the fourth, and General Lu, who was responsible for ensuring the rear, sat in the fifth car. Xiaoying and the others rode in the last car. As the convoy left the Shenwu Gate, fully armed pistol and saber squads lined both sides of the palace gate, while the streets were crowded with onlookers. The convoy, escorted by the military, slowly made its way towards the northern Prince Chun's mansion. Inside the palace, the sounds of crying could be heard as eunuchs and palace maids wept and reluctantly said their goodbyes. Although Empress Zheng He and Empress Ronghui did not leave immediately, they were relocated to the Grand Princess Mansion in the eastern city 18 days later. Upon arriving at Prince Chun's mansion, Puyi shook hands with General Lu Zhonglin and said that he was willing to live as an ordinary citizen of the Republic of China. It is said that when Puyi was expelled from the Forbidden City, he took some antiques and paintings with him. During his exile, Puyi tried to sell some of these items to obtain money. But his luxurious lifestyle quickly depleted these assets. His spending was said to be extravagant, and rumors suggested that he spent large amounts of money on his daily needs, despite no longer being emperor. In 1931, with the help of the Japanese, he regained some wealth, but it did not last long. After Japan's surrender in 1945, Puyi's assets were completely confiscated by the Soviet army. And it was rumored that 2 large boxes of precious jewels he carried were also seized. In 1962, Puyi married a common woman named Li Shuxian and lived a relatively peaceful life. He was no longer the majestic emperor, but an ordinary man trying to adapt to a simple life. However, at the age of 61, Puyi passed away due to illness, leaving behind a legacy that shocked his wife. His inheritance consisted of 3 items, a 10,000-word will, 1 yuan, and a large wardrobe. Compared to his former imperial status and past glory, such an inheritance was almost unbelievable. What is even more puzzling is another rumor about Puyi. He always carried with him a highly valuable jade seal. This seal was originally a symbol of the highest power, and even during his difficult times, Puyi never thought of selling it. However, there was no mention of this jade seal in Puyi's estate inventory. Its disappearance remains a mystery to this day. According to historians, Puyi's life saw a dramatic transformation from emperor to commoner, and he experienced the ups and downs of the times. Although his inheritance was not as substantial as people had expected, his life reflected the profound changes in Chinese history. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.